All right, today we are diving into just 5 short verses from the book of Daniel, chapter 11. And you might be thinking, 5 verses? But what's so incredible here is that this ancient text reads almost like a detailed script for a political drama written centuries before any of the players even took the stage.
So it really makes you wonder, right? Could a text this old actually predict the rise and fall of kings with this kind of laser-like precision? We're not just talking about saying a king will fall. We're talking about predicting the very specific way he wouldn't die. And that's the mystery we're going to unpack.
So our story kicks off with the first king. And this guy, he isn't defined by amazing victories or glorious conquests. Nope, he's defined by debt. Crushing, overwhelming debt. His short, troubled time on the throne is really the first act in this whole drama, and it sets everything else in motion. Now listen closely to the language from verse 20. The prophecy calls him a raiser of taxes. Okay, pretty clear. But the really wild part is the prediction about his death, neither in anger nor in battle. Think about that. The text is saying he's not going to die like a warrior on the battlefield, and he's not going to be overthrown in some popular revolt. It's predicting something else, something quieter and way more specific. And this is where history just seems to snap right into place. Historians are pretty confident this raiser of taxes was a Seleucid king, one of the rulers of the Greek Empire that took over the Middle East after Alexander the Great. He inherited a huge war debt to Rome, and to pay it off, what did he do? He jacked up taxes and even sent his top minister to go plunder the temple in Jerusalem, the glory of the kingdom. And his end? Well, it happened exactly like the text said. Not in a war, not in a riot, but assassinated by that very same minister he sent to get the treasure.
So the man behind the curtain is Seleucus IV Philopator. His entire reign from 187 down to 175 BC was basically one long, desperate scramble to pay off Rome. This constant need for cash, this pressure to squeeze money out of his kingdom by any means necessary, well, that's what defined his rule, and it's exactly what led to his downfall.
Okay, so the tax collector is out of the picture, and the prophecy immediately pivots. The next guy to take the stage is a completely different kind of character. This one gets power not because it's his birthright, but because he is a master of cunning and intrigue.
Verse 21 calls his successor a vile person who won't be given the honor of the kingdom. And get this, his main weapon isn't an army, it's flatteries. He doesn't conquer the kingdom with force, he charms his way onto the throne. This part of the story is all about manipulation, not military might.
So let's check the history on this one. The king we're talking about is Antiochus IV. That term, vile person, many see it as pointing to his illegitimate claim to the throne. Why? Because the actual rightful heir, his own nephew, was, how convenient, being held hostage over in Rome. This left the door wide open for Antiochus to swoop in and grab power exactly as the text describes, not with soldiers, but with flatteries, using his charm, cutting political deals, and bribing the elites to get them on his side.
And here he is, Antiochus IV Epiphanes. He wasn't supposed to be king, but man, was he a master of the political game. He grabbed that throne in 175 BC, and his reign would become infamous, not just for how he got his power, but for the absolutely ruthless and manipulative way he kept it.
So once Antiochus is in charge, he doesn't rule like the kings who came before him. No way. He comes up with this unique playbook for holding on to power, a strategy that mixed brute force with a much more subtle, sinister kind of manipulation.
So, verse 22 tells us his first move. Unleash an overwhelming force, a flood, just to sweep away any and all of his rivals. This even included the Prince of the Covenant, a person that most scholars identify as the Jewish high priest, Onias III. Antiochus had him booted from office and later murdered. A pretty brutal message to anyone else who might think about questioning his rule. Verses 22 through 24 basically lay out his 4-step strategy. Step 1, crush all opposition. Step 2, make alliances, but use them deceitfully as tools to control people, not to make peace. Step 3, he wouldn't conquer wealthy regions. He'd enter them peaceably, pretending to be a friend. And then, step 4, the masterstroke. He'd take the wealth he found there and start handing it out, scattering riches to buy the loyalty of anyone who mattered.
And this is exactly what verse 24 is talking about when it says he would do that which his fathers have not done. See, his predecessors were pretty straightforward. They'd conquer a place and then they'd tax it into the ground. Simple. Antiochus pioneered a whole new method, deception and what you could call strategic generosity. He used a province's own money to buy their loyalty. It was brilliant, and it was completely manipulative.
And if you look at this timeline, you see just how fast all of this chaos unfolded. 1870 BC, Seleucus takes the throne. Just 12 years later, bam, he's assassinated, and Antiochus grabs power. By 170, he's already putting his ruthless playbook into action all over the place. The whole thing is a short but incredibly intense and chaotic slice of history.
So when you just step back and look at these 5 verses, this section from Daniel 11, the one-to-one match between the prophetic text and the historical record is, well, it's pretty startling. Let's just quickly recap the key points.
We've got the tax collector, whose money problems and very specific death line up perfectly with Seleucus IV. We've got the usurper, who charmed his way to power just like Antiochus IV did. We've got the unique method, that whole mix of force and strategic generosity that nobody had really done before. And we've got the betrayal of both his allies and, of course, the Jewish high priest.
And all of this leaves us with one final thought. Whether you see this as mind-blowing prophecy or just a really sharp observation of human nature, you have to ask yourself, what patterns of power, of flattery, of strategic deceit from this ancient story do we still see playing out in the world today? The playbook might just be a lot older than we think.